The Chicago Bulls get their second win in a row now on this West Coast trip. We're going to talk about that win over the Utah Jazz, the performances all up and down that roster. We're also going to talk about some of the drama, the way that the game ended. We're also going to look at what the Bulls' current, the way that they're playing and winning over the back half of the season. What does it really mean for Zach LaVine's potential trade value this offseason? And we have an update to Tory Craig's injury status. We're getting into all that, plus a little bit of the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And so the Chicago Bulls pull out a victory over the Utah Jazz. And this was a game where the Bulls led throughout this game. The Utah Jazz only had the lead for 33 seconds. The game was tied 5 different times in the game. But other than that, the Bulls did lead throughout the game. Now, they did have a collapse in the fourth quarter that allowed the game to be more interesting down the stretch of the game. Matter of fact, in that fourth quarter, the Utah Jazz outscored the Chicago Bulls 34-26, which really did help, make that game interesting towards the end of the game. But outside of those things, the Bulls really did, hold on to the lead for the most part. They gave it up as far as allow the Utah Jazz to come back in. And that just goes back to the thing that we keep talking about with this team. They have to learn to close out these games a little stronger, right? Yeah, we play really good in clutch performances, which we'll talk about here. But overall, when you have a lead against a team, learn to close that out. Now, the Jazz are a team that they play tough. They are a well-coached team. They spread the ball out. When you look at that, even with missing Lauri Markkanen and missing 3 starters they were in this game, they still had 6 players scoring double digits, so they still spread the ball out. John Collins led that team with scoring with 24 points. Colin Sexton led the team, not led the team, but he had 24 points in the game. He goes 7 of 17 from the field, so not really an efficient night from him. He goes 5 of 11 from three-point range. That 11 three-pointer, that miss, that's the one that we're definitely gonna talk about, because the way that everything kind of happened, Colin Sexton ends up getting a wide open look at a three-pointer to end the game with only being down 2. Luckily, he misses as the Bulls hold on for the victory here. But outside of those things, you got to look at the performances in this game. DeMar DeRozan with 29 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. 17 of those 29 points came just in the fourth quarter. He really, for the most part of that game, allowed the game to come to him, allowed Kobe Vooch to really go off in that game. But outside of that, it really was kind of quiet, for DeMar DeRozan until the fourth quarter. And then those 17 points, the king of the fourth showed up, helped seal the victory again for the Chicago Bulls. And I've already seen some people kind of critique and talk about DeMar taking over in the fourth quarter and things like that. I really think the Utah Jazz game plan to try to take the ball out of Kobe White's hands, because Kobe was cooking. He was cooking the Utah Jazz. And you saw it early that Kobe White was going to have it going in this game. And so towards the ending stretch of that game, that's kind of the beauty of the growth that Kobe White has had, right? For DeMar DeRozan, a player that we've had to rely on to be our offense a lot of times so often now, is that teams are looking at DeMar, looking at Kobe and saying, hey, we're going to have to try to stop Kobe, because if he can get hot from three-point range with the way that he can extend extend the offense, that it can be more dangerous for us. So that's allowing now DeMar DeRozan to kind of have, more of a lane and what he's already strong at be even more impactful for the Bulls. And so outside of critiquing, DeMar on that, you guys know I'm not even a DeMar guy, but DeMar's playing the game the right way for what his skill set is and what this team needs, especially when they're going through scoring droughts. Outside of that, Kobe White, 25 points in this game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Kobe White made 7 three-pointers in this game, going 7 of 11 from three-point range. Just amazing performance from Kobe White in this game. And like I said, just you saw that he was going to have it going early in this game. Those 25 points. Nikola Vucevic also with another double-double. He passed 15,000 points in his career now, but 23 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists in this game from Nikola Vucevic. Gotta love that performance from him. And then outside of that, we did have some solid performances. Alex Caruso going 4 of 9 from the field for 11 points, 4 assists, 4 steals from Alex Caruso as well, and 3 rebounds from Caruso. Ayo Dosunmu, one of the coldest nights that he's had shooting-wise, probably in the last month almost. 2 of 11 from the field, but he also chips in 9 assists, 2 rebounds, 1 steal, and 8 points in this game. So Ayo Dosunmu still impacting the game positively even when his shot isn't necessarily falling. And then Drum with 10 and 6 off the bench. Julian Phillips with 6 points off the bench. He makes 2 3-pointers, 1 steal, 4 rebounds in this game. Julian Phillips is ready. Onuralp Bitim in this game, 6 minutes played. He doesn't really play in the second half at all. He goes 0 of 1 in this game. And then Javon Carter, surprisingly enough, leading the Chicago Bulls in minutes off the bench with 20 minutes for Javon Carter, but he does play a solid enough game. 7 points from him, 1 assist in this game. He goes 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from three-point range. But so that's kind of your performances all up and down that. Now the Bulls moved with this game, go to 21 and 16 in clutch game situations. Keep in mind, that's 36 clutch games in the game with only 62 games played. Half of the Bulls' games played this season have been have been clutch games. That's a crazy output there. So, the Bulls are playing so many clutch games down the stretch of this, 21 and 15 in clutch scenarios. That's over half their games have been clutch games. And so, the way that the Bulls are performing are really good in that clutch game situation. And DeMar DeRozan actually talked about how this game had a type of playoff feel, and he said this.
Billy just said this felt like a playoff game. The intensity, the physicality. Did it feel like that to you?
Yeah, it definitely was that. They play extremely hard. They got some dogs on their team. Physicality, great with hands. It was crashing the boards. Every aspect of the game was tough, and definitely was that. And you felt it with the crowd.
What do you want your teammates to learn from an atmosphere like this?
And just embrace it. Just embrace it. Embrace the tough part of the game. It's a marathon, not necessarily, a race. Embrace every single moment, and the ones that can stay locked in the longest is the ones that pull out the game.
And just building that identity, right? We talk about that. This Bulls team needs that identity. And so, 36 out of 62 games have been clutch scenarios for the Chicago Bulls. We're now, so we moved to that. We have a net rating of 22.6. In those games. And so that's huge for the Chicago Bulls as well. 22.6 net rating is great in clutch situations. Kobe White continues to lead the team and lead the NBA in overall plus minus in clutch minutes, followed by Nikola Vucevic being third in plus minus in clutch minutes, and also DeMar DeRozan being fourth. And so, the Bulls are learning, right? And getting these type of wins and being able to hold on to it. Yeah, it sucks that the Bulls weren't able to hold on to that lead throughout that game, right? Kind of get DeMar and Kobe some time to sit, considering they had a double-digit lead throughout most of this game. But the fact is that this is still building that identity in it. But Billy Donovan showed some concerns about not only, the kerfuffle that ended in the game, but also, how the Bulls' mental, they need to get that mental part of the game there because of how it affected the game. And he said this.
What was your view on the late game scuffle with the bench and John?
Yeah, I want to look at it, see if I can get a better look at it. I mean, what it appeared to me is I saw DeMar get fouled. I don't know if he was grabbing his face or holding his face. I think Tory said something that obviously came over. Chris Fleming, I think, was trying to hold everybody off to kind of separate. And then from there, it just kind of escalated, and I was just trying to get everybody else. At that point, I kind of stepped in to kind of break it up a little bit. So, again, I think for us, I don't look at it from a Utah situation at all. I look at it from our situation, and we've got to be better, in those moments, in my opinion, because, not only. Did we lose a point on a technical foul? We also iced our free throw shooter. You know what I mean? And I give DeMar a lot of credit for being mentally tough enough. And, I understand the emotion and the intensity of games, but at the same point, too, whether it's complaining or upset or frustrated, it's not helping anything. And we've got to be able to do a better job than that all the way around. And I'm not just saying the players are on the bench, everybody. We've got to be better in those moments.
And I love the way that Billy Donovan explained that, right? Talking about they iced their own free throw shooter in DeMar DeRozan. Now, look, he was DeMar, right? So he still made them, but that was just a situation that it didn't need to be what it was going to be. And, that situation kind of started with, Tory Craig, after DeMar DeRozan foul, talking some shit there on the sideline, then got everyone involved. Chris Fleming gets up to try to calm everything, as well as Billy Donovan. He puts his hand, John Collins puts his hand around Chris Fleming's neck. So, it's unfortunate that it ended in that way, made the ending of the game, way more interesting than what it would have been either way, because it seemed like the Bulls were going into that situation where they were going to have, a two-possession lead potentially. But with that said, Colin Sexton gets a wide open look at the three, so open, in fact, that he has enough time to get the shot, look at the bucket, reset to kind of get ready to take the shot, and then take it and still miss the three-pointer. Otherwise, that would have been a game winner, and we all would have absolutely been, rightfully so, pissed off if that's the way that it went for the Chicago Bulls team. But with this win now, the Bulls move to 2-0 in this West Coast road trip. They're 2 wins in a row now as well for the Chicago Bulls after losing that game against the Milwaukee Bucks. That could have been, the Milwaukee Bucks absolutely killed them. They could have been on a 4-game win streak, but nonetheless. And then you look also with the we got a win coming up, game coming up against the Golden State Warriors tonight that goes down, which we'll preview that game towards the end of this show. And then also on Saturday against the Clippers. So the Bulls sit right now 2 games below 500. We still sit 2.5 games above the Atlanta Hawks. I think just 2 games, above the Atlanta Hawks in the Eastern Conference standings. So the Bulls need to continue to win. And we talked about coming into this week, if the Bulls can finish this week 500. Well, now they've already guaranteed themselves a 500 finish in this week. And hey, listen, don't stop there. Let's try to get a win. The game against the Golden State Warriors is going to be a tough enough one, but let's hope that the Bulls can get that win against the Warriors. Now, with that said, I want to talk a little bit about this. Somebody asked yesterday in the live stream in the post-game show, what are the Bulls winning and in clutch situations mean for Zach LaVine's trade value? Now, I think that when you look at the things that teams had questions on Zach LaVine, one thing was the contract. That's not going to change. It can't change. So that's always going to be there. Right now, I do think with teams having some cap space to absorb a little bit more of that contract without having to match that salary this offseason, maybe that can make it happen. But I still have my doubts because of 2 specific reasons. The injury concern was one. Can Zach LaVine stay healthy? He had a season-ending surgery. That kind of is what it is. Teams are going to have his medicals. They'll figure that out. But then the impact on winning. So I want to talk about that impact a little bit. The Chicago Bulls lost an all-star on a max contract that is 30% of their total cap space. And since then, the Chicago Bulls have played better, right? And again, they've won more games. The Bulls are averaging basically 114 points per game without Zach LaVine. They were averaging 108 points per game, 109, basically 108.9, 109 points per game with Zach LaVine. Now, that's a 4-point difference, not a huge thing there, right? The Bulls have a record of 20-17 without Zach LaVine this season. They were 10-15 with Zach LaVine. Now, in no way, be clear here, am I blaming the Chicago Bulls, how bad they were to start the season off just on Zach LaVine. I think if anybody does that, they're trying to push a narrative rather than fact. Nikola Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan were also shooting in their career low true shooting percentages, while Zach LaVine was there also shooting in his career low. Kobe White hadn't yet ascended to what he's now become for the Chicago Bulls during that initial stretch of the Bulls going 4-15 either. So yes, the Chicago Bulls have a better win percentage without Zach LaVine than they do with. Now, there are reasons to that, basketball reasons to that, but at the same time, that is still going to be something that teams use when they try to negotiate with Zach LaVine to try to get him for cheaper. So I've maintained for a while now that I do not think Zach LaVine is going to be moved this offseason. Now, anything's possible, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think it's more so going to be at the trade deadline next year. Teams are going to want to make sure Zach's healthy. They're going to want to see, depending on how the Bulls finish the season, do the Bulls come out and play better initially at the beginning of next season, adding a 20-point per game scorer in Zach LaVine, who should theoretically help this team a lot. But it's those questions around Zach LaVine and how he impacts the game that I think it's still going to make it very difficult to move Zach LaVine to get value back. Now, if the Bulls just look to dump a salary and just they want to take something back, maybe some future assets, match the salary as much as possible to kind of just get away from the talk around the Zach LaVine trade scenario, then maybe they still move him. But I think that knowing what we've seen from AK, he's going to want value back, and that some value. I'm not saying 1-for-1 value, but some value back. So I think that, yeah, the Bulls winning is great, and we want to see it continue, but it's going to be tough. It's going to make it a little bit tougher, increase those doubts around how Zach LaVine impacts it with the Chicago Bulls playing the way they have. And make no mistake about it, Kobe White's rise has basically replaced the the scoring, at least, that Zach LaVine brought. Now, Kobe White does some other things. I think he's better defensively. I think he's a better passer. I think he makes better decisions passing the ball in clutch situations, even when he's not scoring. But it's definitely helped kind of overtake that. And, of course, we'll see how that goes heading into next season. But, all right. Now, with that said, we also got an upgrade on Tory Craig. The most action Tory Craig has seen in the last 2 weeks has been causing that sideline kerfuffle. But outside of that, he was upgraded to doubtful yesterday, and Billy Donovan said this. He's moving in a really good direction. I don't know about this road trip, but it's certainly not out of the question. A lot of this could be depending on how he continues to progress. But I think the medical guys are pretty optimistic of where he's at this point in time. So, getting Tory Craig back to add some of that size, to add some of that defense, right? To add just a role player that completely understands how to go about his without needing offense called for him a lot is important for the Bulls, especially in a playoff stretch. And as the Bulls are getting back to playing better, having Tory Craig out there to provide some of that size, that leadership, some of that edge for the Chicago Bulls, I think is going to be really good for this team. And he's going to come back with the minutes restriction. Billy Donovan has already said that. And I think he's going to be on that minutes restriction for probably about a week or two before you kind of see that come off for him. But that's fine. It gives us some time leading into the play-in to really kind of do that. And either way, I'd say this, 10 minutes of Tory Craig are probably more impactful than 10 minutes of Javon Carter. But it seems like he's going to play either way. And so it's up to Billy Donovan to see how to balance that rotation at that point in time, right? Like who falls out. We've already seen Dalen Terry fall out. He wasn't at last night's game for a personal matter. Earned a lot. His minutes, have gone down over the last couple of games. So we'll see what that means for the Chicago Bulls, but ultimately you want to be as close to full strength as you can be, and Tory Craig is that for the Chicago Bulls. Like, Patrick Williams isn't coming back this season. Zach LaVine isn't coming back this season. So because of those things, we want to get Tory Craig back, and we can see what we have in that team. Now, we face off against the Golden State Warriors tonight, and this is a team that has absolutely, utterly killed us and destroyed us for the better part of the last decade for the most part. So, the Golden State Warriors have gone through their own struggles this season. They are above 500 team this season, and they are a team that's still well coached, that understands each other, that's been together for so long that they help up their standards there at Golden State with the way that they play. But make no mistake about it, the Golden State Warriors are still a top 10 offense in this league this season, averaging 118 points per game. So the Bulls are going to have to come in defensively, not slacking. You cannot lack defensively against a Golden State Warriors team because you will get cooked. That's the way that it shows up, especially with the three-point line. The Bulls give up that three-point line so regularly that if they allow the Golden State Warriors to get in a rhythm and to go in unanswered runs, it's going to be a long night for the Chicago Bulls. But then defensively, the Chicago Bulls are the 12th ranked defense in the league right now. The Golden State Warriors are the 18th ranked defense in the league. So the Golden State Warriors, while they score 118 points per game, they give up 116.8 to be exact points per game do the Golden State Warriors give up. So again, much like coming into the last night's game, the last two games that we've played, the Bulls have to play solid enough defense. Set that tone defensively early, right? Be consistent on the defensive end, and then allow the offense to come to you. Get out in transition where you can. That's where we're the most dangerous at. But play smartly, right? Don't turn the ball over, which is one thing the Bulls did really good in last night's game. Do not turn the ball over. Get more of those 50-50 balls, those key rebounds down the stretches of games, and don't let the Golden State Warriors absolutely cook you like they have cooked you for years and years and years, right? So we'll see what that means. And the Golden State Warriors are a team that's starting to hit a stride, right? And we've seen this before with the Golden State Warriors. I'm not saying, kind of like in the past where they've hit their stride in the back half of the season and then they go on like these deep playoff runs. But this is a team that has won 4 out of the last 5 games, and I believe they've won 8 out of their last 10. You don't want to overlook the Golden State Warriors. They're coming off a win. Both teams, luckily, are going to be coming on the second of back-to-backs. They played the Milwaukee Bucks last night. They beat the Bucks 125-90, right? So that's a team that also played last night. So the Bulls have to be prepared for what the Golden State Warriors are going to try to bring towards them, man. I want to see a well-coached game from Billy Donovan as well. He's been doing a really good job at kind of balancing those rotations out. Yeah, we want to see other players play more, but I've been liking how he kind of brings people in and out of the games. I have to correct myself. The Golden State Warriors is 7-3 over the last 10, not 8-2, but still winning a lot of games here as the Golden State Warriors seem to turn it on in March and April. So the Bulls got to be prepared not to be a victim tonight against the Golden State Warriors, and they got to play tough defensively. How we play defense out on that perimeter is going to be important for this game overall, and the Bulls can come in here and weather that storm, then yeah, they can make this game interesting. I would love to see the Bulls get their third win in a row tonight against the Golden State Warriors. Steph is still cooking, averaging 27 points per game. You got Klay averaging 17, Kuminga averaging 16, Wiggins averaging 12. He just returned to the team as well. So the Bulls going to have to be locked in this game, and you cannot overlook, and I hope they would not overlook the Golden State Warriors of all teams, but you got to be prepared for what this Warriors team is going to try to bring to you, both offensively and try to get in your head defensively today. Hopefully the Bulls are prepared for it. They've been playing with a little bit more edge. Hopefully they're developing that, and we'll see what the Bulls can get in this game tonight against the Golden State Warriors. So we're going to go to the voicemail back for one voicemail today, but before we do that, got to hear from a message from our sponsor.
I'm sure most of you know anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name and personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. For me, personally, I never took this kind of stuff seriously, that people can take my personal data and use it for their own financial gain. Well, in 2019, I got my identity stolen, including my social security number and credit card information, and it was a total nightmare getting it all sorted out. From recouping loans that were taken out in my name and shopping sprees on my credit card, there are some really bad people out there, and it's sad to say, but it's true. Do a Google search for your personal information or someone you know and see if a people search site shows up. The information is easily accessible because of data brokers who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And so for me, protecting my and my family's personal data and information is at the utmost importance because of the terrible experience I had 4 years ago. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They will even opt out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in any data breach and exposed on the dark web. Aura's app also features VPN password manager, real-time credit card and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app, which is what makes it so amazing, so that you don't have to use multiple platforms and sites to protect yourself. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much your private information Aura finds exposed over 2 weeks. I was shocked at how much my information Aura was able to find when I was using the app. Go to aura.com/CBC to start your free trial. Also linked in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now back to the video.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the mailbag today. This first voicemail, the only voicemail for today, this one's from Shay.
Season is officially over. We should file for the career-ending situation thingy on Lonzo. And another thing, I believe that we should look to keep Andre Drummond around for at least 1 or 2 more seasons. Look, I understand that he may not look to want to stay, but let's face it, we don't know what Donovan is. Now, I know we can say the same thing about the team, and I know that, I know I can't judge out for 3 games, but he's doing pretty decent for himself. We need, 1 more season to know what he really is, but, back to the, Adamas Sanago, we don't necessarily know how he will adjust to the NBA next season, so I think that we might want to at least keep Andre Drummond around for at least 1 more season before we officially, because I know we're eventually going to look to Adamas Sanago because let's face it, his game is suited for the NBA, and you don't need a lot of players called for him, but I think you might want to keep Andre Drummond around at least for 1 more season before you decide to throw Adamas Sanago into the fire and bring him in next season like you're doing on a good team, because I feel like he doesn't necessarily understand what the NBA is, and I think Andre Drummond could teach him that, because basically, besides the good rebounder, they're basically the same player who gets their points off of hustle points and don't need a lot of players called for him. That's just my opinion, but I feel like, we might need to try to get, as soon as free agency starts for us, all we need to do is file a career-ending thing for Lonzo Ball and keep Andre Drummond around, because we don't know what Adamas Sanago is yet, but that's just my opinion. Or maybe we should go ahead and give him a full NBA contract, because in our reality, we have to get that contract off the books at least, because I don't know for sure what we're going to do with Zach LaVine, and everything else is up in the air with DeMar DeRozan contract. But we definitely got to get that damn contract off our books. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
And I'd say, Shay, this is a really solid voicemail, right? The career-ending injury exception for Lonzo, like I said, the Bulls almost have to file it to me. If there's any doubt that Lonzo's going to be ready to go, I would say, like I said, at the draft, if there's any doubt, any questions that he's going to be ready to go by training camp, as you approach that draft, you file it. If it gets declined, cool, it gets declined. If he's able to come back, he's able to come back. But I think you have to take the opportunity to try to file that, to put yourself in a situation. Because, listen, the Bulls are right up against the luxury tax this year. And so able to get that $20 million back onto the books would be interesting. Now, as far as keeping Drum around, here's the thing. It's not about what Drum could bring. I think for what he brings at the minutes that he plays, that you'd be crazy not to want to bring Drum around. But as I talked about in yesterday's episode, Andre Drummond has played on the vet minimum for 4 years in a row, and he's showing now that what he can bring. And I do think that Drum is probably going to try to explore if he can get a little bit more and maybe even chase the title if he can get on one of these teams that needs a defensive big that can still score some for you, especially if you already have a solid team that went on a deep playoff run. Adding Andre Drummond for over the mid-level, for at the mid-level exception, which is over the minimum for him, would be a great signing for a team that went on a deep playoff run the season prior. So it's going to come down to money when it comes to Drummond. And that's Drummond's talked about loving being in Chicago, loving how the team handled his mental health situation. So maybe he's willing to take less to stay in Chicago for a third year. And the Adama Sanogo portion of it, here's what I'll say with Sanogo. Sanogo's shown everything that you could possibly want to see from him in the G League. Stopped shooting the 3-point ball. Understood that, hey, I can't get this shot off fast enough to take 3-pointers at a high level at the G League level. Averaging a double-double. Killing it with blocks, averaging over a steal per game. Adama Sanogo is showing everything that you wanted him to be. And I at some point, you got to take the training wheels off. Now, that may coincide with the fact that we may not just be able to pay Drummond what he wants to get. And then thus, you're looking at using your G League team as a development team and giving Adama Sanogo a go. Now, if that happens, I do think they probably still either draft a big or sign a veteran big. Maybe as a back end of the bench if Adama doesn't work out or gets in foul troubles, which plague young big man. But Adama Sanogo has flashed so much that I do hope the Bulls reward that in giving him a shot at the NBA level next year as well. Great voicemail, Shay. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's my time for today. Make sure you're following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.